So I'll start with Dr. Rajshekhar Murthy sir to initially provide us a perspective, since you are already engaged with think tanks working in the domain of water science and associated areas. What could be the potential roles that our audience can know and understand in terms of how think tanks engage with the larger theme of what we're discussing on climate adaptation and resilience? So what are your initial thoughts on the role of think tanks engaging on aspects of climate resilience and adaptation? Your thoughts, sir? Yes. The role of think tanks, especially the institute that you are associated with.
Air pollution issues, which I studied quite some time ago, almost 10 years ago, and it was also my doctoral thesis. But I have followed the air quality situation in Bangalore for quite a number of years. As you know, based on the World Health Organization classification, Bangalore is one of the worst air polluted city amongst the 13 cities in the world. Bangalore tops. And almost all critical parameters of air quality standards, the most important of which is the PM 2.5, has been much higher than what is permitted. It's almost in the worst category, about 90 micrograms per meter cube, and what is accepted is 2.5. So it is several orders of magnitude greater than this one. And you probably have also heard, read in the newspaper, World Health Organization is listed 13 countries out of 20. 13 countries out of 20 are in India, are the very worst polluted cities. And there is no question about it, based on what you probably have heard and seen. Every summer, Delhi goes through this very critical stage of air pollution. And although there has been a lot of discussion on trying to find the main causes of this, but still no particular action has been taken to remedy the situation. So that's very much the same thing in all other cities, except that probably the ranking may be slightly different. But as far as classification is concerned, air quality in urban centers is one of the major issue that the country has to face. And another aspect of which I am familiar with, at least in the country where I live in Canada, air quality levels are interlinked with the health issues, where the air quality monitoring system is linked with the primary health issue. I don't see any such linkage here, other than the fact that it has been reported in the newspaper and also probably indicated through this air quality index levels in urban centers. So while we see here only these the dangerous consequences of air quality, but there is no serious action taken at all levels of the government to deal with this issue in a more scientific way, in a way to really relate the air quality levels, particularly those which are of significant impact on the health, so human health, such as particulate matter 2.5. So that's the particular situation. It is a common knowledge air quality and air pollution in all urban centers is increasing. You just have to mention, you just have to simply look at what the transportation sector has done. The number of vehicles on the road has gone up by an order of magnitude in the last 5 or 10 years. So there is serious concern, and to my knowledge, there is no particular action taken by any authorities trying to look at the impact of this dangerously high levels of air quality with human health.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. In fact, we can take up the next part on your initial pointers with regard to the linkage between air pollution and health and the larger perspective that one has to do from the research components. Eventually, I'll come back to you as a next question to you, but now I'll move to Professor TVRAMACHANDRA, sir. So if you could, so I was very keen to hear from Rajshekhar sir about the role of think tanks. But what we are seeing you from many decades working in the domain of water ecology, lake rejuvenation, etc., from Indian Institute of Science, we are very keen to hear your perspective on how higher education institutions play a role in engaging on aspects of resilience, sustainability, and climate change, from your experiential insights and other evidence that you bring in.
See, when there was the state was developing the action plan for mitigation and adaptation of changes in climate, B.K. Chandrasekhar was the chair of the MLC. So we were part of the team. In fact, the science input has gone in for the decision making. If you look at the action plan, whatever the suggestions given is recorded there. But implementation is a big gap. That is where the thing. See, now when you look at the water scarcity in Bangalore, I have said clearly that we should move away from GDP-based growth to the carrying capacity-based system in urban planning. And also I had highlighted the absence of water urbanism in the urban planning is the root cause of water scarcity, which means, we are not planning the landscape properly. The landscape has to be porous if you have to have the groundwater in the region. The landscape is porous only when there is a vegetation cover and the water bodies. That is where 33% the forest cover in the region is crucial, and maintaining the integrity of the lakes is equally important. We also highlighted these two ecosystems have the higher carbon sequestration potential that helps in mitigating the changes in climate. And you can, if you look at the climate resilient system, the Western Ghats is a good example. We call Western Ghats as a water tower which supplies the water to the peninsular India. Because of the water security, we have food security. If we protect ecologically sensitive regions in the Western Ghats, we have done our job. That is where the policy level, Mother Cattle Committee, I was the local expert, we had given the input. And then when the report was not implemented, somebody filed a PIL in the Supreme Court. Then Supreme Court, the Green Bench, asked all the state government to give the list of the villages which in the respective state which are under ecological sensitive and what is the level of sensitiveness. None of the government was responding. At that time, NGT approached me, the external member approached me and asked me whether we can do something. Then I had told him that not only I'll give the details to the court, I'll also make it available to the public. We developed the decision support system which is called Western Ghats Spatial Decision Support System, which helps in the policy and decision making, where you can visualize the villages at the eco-sensitive level. For example, if you look at Wayanad, why Wayanad happened? Because of the transition of the landscape from the native species forest into the tea plantations by the influential section of the society. So now, when we have the restriction on such region, certainly the carbon sequestration will happen and the water security also will be there. Because wherever native species forests are there, the water bodies are perennial. With the changes in climate, water is going to be a major threat. Now, if we protect those forests, we are not only mitigating the changes in climate, we are also ensuring the water to everybody. That is what one has to do it. Coming to the Bangalore, rejuvenation of the lakes, any urban area, is one of the important things. For example, Modubidre, Taluk, there was a water crisis in 2014 and 15. When we intervened, when the local people approached us, especially the Jain Mutt Swamiji, we gave a suggestion to do the rejuvenation of the lake. He did 2 lakes and remaining 30 were done by the local people. And after 5 years, when the entire state faced the drought, the green drought, Mudavindre, there was no water crisis. That means that is the model. Rejuvenating lakes at decentralized level and using the silt that is taken out from the lake for agriculture purposes will also solve another problem of external input getting into the agriculture, in terms of fertilizer, etc. For example, Vattur Lake and Balandur, when it is getting rejuvenated, I gave the silt to the farmers in the nearby locality. And after 4 months when I visited, each farmer was so happy. They invited me with a bumper crop. And each farmer told me they got additional revenue of 1.5 lakh because of my decision of giving the silt to them at zero cost. That means we have the solution there. Once the farmers take the silt, lake rejuvenation happens, desilting happens. Because of that, the groundwater recharge happened. The moment you store the rainwater in the lake, you have solved the water problem in the city. For example, Bangalore receives the rain of 700 to 850 millimeter. When we rejuvenate a lake like this, it can store 15 TMC of rainwater. Bangalore requires 18 TMC of the water. That means 70% of the water requirement can be met by the rainwater harvesting. And the most efficient ways of harvesting rainwater at individual level is rooftop. So the second is through the lake. So that's where we need to rejuvenate the lake and retain the rainwater in the lake, which helps in addressing many challenges, especially the water security, which is bound to happen with the changes in climate.
Sure, sir. Thank you. I think what we have got a clear perspective here is that there's a lot of evidence on the ground which suggests how one can engage with these problems. Now we need to translate them on the tables of policymakers and then ensure that the implementation happens. And implementation is not just the bureaucrats' responsibility, it is collective responsibility, though they should lead the process. I think that's something that will come back. Would you like to quickly add something on this?
All the pillars of the democracy has to work in tandem.
Exactly.
Judiciary has to understand what the science says. If judge doesn't understand, then we will have a very controversial judgment. Similarly, the media has to be environmentally literate. Then only you can see the whole chain of things working.
Exactly.
We are fortunate, at least in Bangalore, we have sensible media as well as some judges understand the thing. The moment they see our report, they think that they have to give the verdict in those lines.
So we need, if I'm not wrong, to say that we need 30 Professor Ramachandras in all the states to have that difference and impact. So yes.
That is the purpose of this capacity building program.
That's exactly.
See, when we speak, youngsters listen to us.
Yes.
And they will be they are the future of India. They will take the idea forward.
Yes, sir.
Yesterday you are a student, today you are sitting here.
Yes.
Tomorrow those people will take over this place.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And with that spirit of Viksit Bharat 2047 and the aim that we should look towards, now I'll move to Professor Divakar. So from ground, we'll please take us to space on the idea of how ISRO as an institution or organization has contributed, because many of our young students only see ISRO in terms of the space shuttles. There's more that we are maybe not aware about in the larger domain of climate resilience, sustainability and climate change. How has ISRO contributed over so many decades?
Thank you, Dr. Chetan. Basically, ISRO for common man looks as though it is Indian Space Research Organization. Indian Space Research Organization stands for launching rockets every other day, and mostly common man look at ISRO as that agency which launches rocket at least thrice in a year. After that, nobody comes to know what really happens to those rockets. But for the common man, the story is different. Story to be understood is different. These rockets deploy different types of satellites into different types of orbits. It could be communication, it could be meteorology, it could be Earth observation. And each of these satellites serve the people in much different way than what one can think of. The communication satellites literally do the connectivity which is required for all the people. It also provides the DTH and broadband network, which allows very quick communications, and also meets the requirement of information exchange, in addition to bouquet of entertainment services on the DTH. On the navigation front, the Navic basically provides the location-based information for those people who are traveling on the ground, and one can use it for wide varieties of network-based, ground-based network-related problems. But Earth observation has a much bigger role to play from the sustainability point of view, to address various countries' requirement, which I addressed as part of my presentation today. So it looks at various resources. Basically, Earth observation satellites provide resource maps. It could be agriculture, it could be horticulture.
If your address in presentation specifically, you could also highlight on how much of this information is publicly available for the participants to go back also and use that. So maybe
I did that also. Most of this data, what I spoke about already in the morning, is already present in the public domain as part of Bhuvan Geo portal, which I told them as a very special portal which provides a lot of data. But main thing is, like, your question was that how this gets used. All the data what we generate and all the information that we generate, it's no longer a data, it is information package, and this entire information is made available to the respective ministries, both at the state and at the center, so that the center as well as state can use it for decision making. It could be water, it could be agriculture, it could be forest, it could be ocean, it could be, let us say, wastelands converted into productive use. So the question is how they get used. The ministries do have very good examples of using this data for developmental purposes, and since space also allows you to do monitoring, we are given the objective of not only providing the information, but also we use it for monitoring. So we will go back and see whether a particular activity that is taken up by a ministry is actually implemented or not. So that way it is a full cycle of implementation and monitoring and impacts, all the three.
Thank you, sir. Cyclones, yeah.
That's another part. During disasters, obviously a lot of infrastructure goes down, but we are able to save lives. Particularly the advance warning system of a particular landfall of a cyclone, we are able to tell the local authorities much earlier, and all the people and the livestock are taken to safer places, and they escape the disaster and their lives are saved.
So preventive interventions are very critical. So we'll come to Volta after that, to Dr. Sudhakar. See, now we have heard yesterday the presentation by your colleagues, and we also got a perspective of how Russia as a nation is engaging with aspects of water and other aspects of climate change. But I'm very curious to learn, and also I thought this would be good value add for our participants, that the socio-economic aspect of engaging with ecological issues in Russia, how are those shaped in the institution that you are engaging with, and what would be your insight to share with our audience about Russia on this?
Мне бы хотелось обозначить... Поближе, ага. Translation, yeah. Мне бы хотелось обозначить о том, что политика в использовании природных ресурсов, она происходит на различных уровнях, и на национальном, и на международном, это разные уровни.
So I would like to mention, first of all, that the policy making concerning the environmental issues occurs on every level. First it is the state level, then it is the regional level, and the third it is the municipal level.
Если мы говорим о национальном уровне, наш опыт показывает, что в целом можно очень успешно работать с органами власти.
So our experience shows that if you try hard, it is possible to work with our national authorities.
Один из примеров я рассказывала вчера в докладе о участии нас в национальной системе измерения парниковых газов.
So one of the examples I gave during my yesterday's presentation, and it is the project of measuring the greenhouse gases that we participate in.
Другой пример, наш регион Карелия имеет очень много уникальных природных объектов.
And the second example is that our home region, the Republic of Karelia, has very many unique natural objects.
И все охраняемые территории в нашем регионе, а их больше 100 разного уровня заповедники, национальные парки, они обоснованы и созданы нами, учеными.
So, and all these places, the very unique places in the Republic of Karelia, they are now reserved territories, and all of the approval that the state decision makers they got from our scientists, and they made decisions based on the research works of our scientists.
И руководство республики принимало за основу именно наши обоснования и создавало эти системы.
So, and the leadership of the Republic of Karelia took as a basis the results of the research, and then they made the database for that.
Это опыт в национальном масштабе, а мы имеем опыт, который мне хотелось бы в двух словах сказать, международный.
So this is the regional level, yes, and the national level. And what I want to mention, I would like to say a few words about our experience in international cooperation.
Дело в том, что, конечно же, природа не знает административных границ.
Well, of course, you're well aware that nature doesn't recognize state borders.
Яркий пример – это воздушное загрязнение, изменение климата.
So the great examples in this case are the air pollution and the climate change.
И, например, миграция животных.
And the animals migration.
И когда мы говорим, вот что очень важно, в разных странах существуют в настоящее время разные стандарты, разное законодательство.
And what we're dealing with now is that in different countries there is different legislation, there are different standards.
И одно и то же животное, обитая в одной стране, может быть охраняемым, а пересекая границу, его могут уничтожить.
And for example, one animal can be protected in one country, and when it crosses the border, it can be shot in the neighbor country.
Поэтому мы должны стремиться к общим нормам, к общим стандартам, что касается использования наших природных ресурсов.
And that is why we all have to long for common standards concerning nature, common standards that will unite us and assure common approach to the issue.
Это сложно, потому что у нас разная экономика, разные условия, разное население, но это должно быть нашей стратегической задачей.
Of course it is complicated because we have different population, different economy, different social life, but we have to long for it because it is our future.
И наша задача именно как ученых работать вместе, кооперироваться, делать вместе эту работу и вместе доказывать нашим правительствам, как это надо делать.
And for us scientists, the main task in this respect is that we have to unite and do joint research and prove to our governments that that's what we really have to do in order to assure a sustainable future for us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I could definitely anchor 3 critical points from this for the benefit of the participants. I'll try to summarize. Maybe I'm not going to be 100% correct to that word. One is, I think, and also there's a good insight for India and nations in developing countries, that you have a national goal, objective for sustainability. I think we should really reflect upon that point and see whether we can think of something on those lines. One, while we have to be thoughtful of the differences at the regional level and at the micro level. Second, I think the idea of setting global common standards. I think BRICS is a good starting point. And if we can have one common standard for BRICS to think through and then see how it could evolve at a global level. And third, of course, you focused on how Karelian Research Centre was able to give insights to the government, the leadership, and they were able to implement. So the role of think tank and institutes is very central. And Professor Ramachandra sir was mentioning that how the 4 pillars should also reflect upon the insights that Professor Ramachandra also works on the ground and the evidence. So at least these 3 important points I could capture. Thank you. So Sudhakar sir, specifically now that we have got what I call 33,000 feet perspective to 15,000 feet perspective to 5,000 feet perspective on sustainability, could you give us the ground zero perspective of your engagement with biodiversity, vegetation on evidence? What specific insights would like to share to us on how to engage with evidence on the ground? Turn on the mics. So if you could focus on vegetation, biomass and biodiversity in general. So
Yes,
that would
yes.
be-
So I'll start with an example of my own career. I started my research with the State Forest Department, Andhra Pradesh, and our major objective was to study the forest flora of Andhra Pradesh. So at that time, as part of the objective, we need to collect the specimens, identify the plants, and also identify their economic value or any uniqueness, like it is a rare species or endangered, or like the usage point of view, it is a medicinal plant or timber species. Okay. The problem at the time was before 2000 of my joining, that all our surveys doesn't have any georeferencing. For example, I am mentioning one particular location like Mudumalai, Bandipur. We don't know exactly where that species is existing. Once you specify just like Bandipur or Mudumalai, it may be sanctuary itself like some 300 square kilometer of area. So you don't have a proper spatial referencing in majority of our surveys which were done before the year 2000. Later, the people are also getting the knowledge that this GPS, global positioning system, and advanced technologies like the remote sensing and GIS, and also with the help of computer science, it is helping the citizens, policymakers, as well as the researchers to utilize this kind of geospatial technologies. So once you are using the GPS and the GIS, geospatial technology, you are giving the proper XY coordinate for each location. So now it means if you take like a tree, you have the proper tree map. You know its exact X and Y location. So once you have such kind of X and Y location for each species through your in situ measurement, and once you are upscaling through remote sensing, you will be generating the information like vegetation type change. Okay. So why I am focusing towards non-spatial to spatial is by using the spatial data, you know that the species is growing, or is there any change like mortality or a destruction of resource. Okay. If they are conserving an entire ecosystem also.
Sir, can we have one example on one of the spatial data that you have recently come across so that?
Yes. So what we have done is first whatever the data you are collecting from the field, collect through some stratified random sampling approaches, and also use the standard protocols which being used at the global level. Like we have CTFS, Center for Tropical Forest Science Protocol. We have Amazon Forest Inventory Protocol. So use the standard protocols. So we have the global harmonization while you are working with the other countries. So you will be seeing each species with the same standard. And also whatever the data you are generating, using your own expertise and also the expertise of collaborators, you can able to generate the information required for the management. So finally, if you are working in collaboration like engineering, science, geography, and other disciplines, even law, we can have a better perspective for the management resource point of view.
Sir, thank you. So now,
Shall I add to that?
Please.
See, this ground-based measurement, using remote sensing data, you can quantify what is the carbon stored in the forest. For example, Western Ghats, our study shows, which Bharat and I have done, it stores about 1.28 million gigagram of carbon, and every year it stores 37,000 gigagram of carbon, which is equivalent to the emission that happens in Mumbai, Bangalore, Mangalore, etc. Now, if you assign the economic value, considering the social cost of carbon, it amounts to about 100 billion rupees or $1.4 billion. See, if you are asking for a carbon credit, we have the carbon bank here, so we can seek for that. That's the kind of the thing. And second thing is, the ground-based measurement also gives us an idea about resilient crops. For example, if you look at Uttar Kannada district, in one taluk, I have 54 varieties of rice, and it is resilient to changes in climate, drought tolerant and pest resistant, and the yield is high, some varieties. If I hybridize it, I get a better crop which is resilient to the changes in climate. Similarly, the brinjal. In one village in Kumta, we have 16 varieties of brinjal. If I hybridize it, I get a better brinjal than BT brinjal. See, we should not get this genetically modified crop to India. We are going to create the disaster. We should have our own hybridization of native strain, which will be the climate resilient. That is where this kind of field investigation and extrapolating to the larger scale through the remote sensing data will certainly help in policy making and appropriate decisions.
Thank you, sir. Definitely there is a lot of scope for pursuing research in each of these pointers that you shared, right from the carbon footprints to the biodiversity, biomass, etc. So, Dr. Rajshekhar, sir, in the last 3 months, India is talking about air pollution in Delhi, and but other cities are not far from that unfortunate reality. So, what do you advise the youth and us in terms of addressing issues of air pollution, in terms of prevention of air pollution?
I think I'm sort of becoming immune to this since I visit India almost every year. I am not surprised about the type of interpretation that the policymakers make about this. Innumerable studies have been done by outside agencies. I don't know, some of you may remember that IBM carried out an experiment evaluating so-called pain index for the commuters, for the society as a whole. Bangalore stood around 90, maybe now it is 130 or 140, I don't know. But take it from this example, the whole policy has been economic. And in order to achieve these economic indicators, whether it is whatever parameters you may use, is at the expense of something else. What is that something else? If a person who wants to go to work commutes for 2.5 hours to reach his work, you can understand what the productivity is going to be immediately after he arrives in the office. At the same time, after he finishes his work or the number of hours he has to be in the office, goes back home after 2.5 hours on the traffic jam, what implications it will have on the family. None of these type of factors enters into the policy making at all. All that they are interested is in one single economic indicator, and they show. It is not that when you propose some positive measures that you can incorporate so that to alleviate the suffering, it is something that they will brush it off. Oh, it doesn't work in here. It doesn't work. There is nothing wrong in using or learning from the experiences of others. For example, the traffic jam and others which occurred in Western countries and all, they brought about flexible working hours. People go different times. They will all be there between 10 and 3 or some such thing for all the integrated activities that has to be carried out. So that way the traffic also was eased out, because with a staggered working week, so staggered working hours, they never really considered. Everybody has to be in Vidhan Sabha. That's the point. Within this one should be answerable to the ministers who are there. So they don't take this, and if you talk to them, I have done it many times for many ministers, the simple statement they will make is, they will only give me 10 minutes or 5 minutes, oh, it doesn't work here. It doesn't work. The simple answer that they have, it doesn't, oh, you're all coming from all examples from it doesn't work here. There is no consideration to analyze and see whether we can benefit from these type of things.
I think the two important points that we can reflect on this is that prevention is definitely a need of the hour, but at what level we should be reflecting on making interventions for prevention is something that needs further discourse and dialogue. I'm sure yesterday and today you had many discussions, but specifically in just in a minute's time, sorry to cut short your ideas, but in a minute's time, if you have to sort of communicate to the people at large, between planet, profit and the people, where do we locate the solution for air pollution to be addressed?
Well,
Like, is
I know it is a free country, democratic country, everybody has the right to own a vehicle, everyone will buy because the economy. But you have to put some restrictions on the driving habits of the people. To start with, as I mentioned, maybe the staggered working week, staggered working hours may be one option that you can try so that you can reduce the density of vehicles on this.
Yeah.
And another option that you can also encourage is ride sharing, which has been practiced by many countries.
Carpooling is what.
Yeah. Wherever it is possible. And even in the office situations, of course now, thanks to the pandemic, many
The online
agencies are given opportunity. With all the technology that is available, many of them can work from home. That's all based on trust and this one. If you say you work from home, you simply don't assume they don't work from home. They're doing something else. So these kind of innovations, there is nothing wrong. What the implication that they have is they don't want to copy.
Sure, sir. I'll come back to on these 2 points in the last phase of the discussion, but noted 2 important interventions that you mentioned, which is very much possible by us, and the users can definitely engage with those potential solutions. And Bangalore has tried its luck on both in a way, but I think we need to reflect on its efficacy. To Professor Ramachandra sir specifically, your expertise is ranging from energy to water management and to ecology and of course Western Ghats. I would rather, instead of asking you a question, I would rather ask you to choose which of this domain you would like to focus on to kind of advise us on where do we need to build capacity more. Which of these 3 or any of your domain that you think the capacity building is immediate and it should be done without fail?
See, all these sectors are equally important. If you are talking about coming up with a mechanism to address the changes in climate, if you take energy, decarbonizing, that is where you have to give a boost to the renewable energy, energy efficiency improvement. We have all wrong thinking. We think that if the per capita energy consumption goes up in a country, the country will develop. Such a foolish thing we follow because of the economists. My study shows that for every unit of GDP, India consumes 14 times higher than Sweden, 12 times higher than US, 10 times higher than Japan. That means we are inefficient 14 times compared to Switzerland, 12 times compared to US, which means that we need to do the energy, the conservation as the objective, both at the supply end and also the demand side. There are some improvements happening, that's where energy auditing is happening. Second is, when you look at the transportation sector, among the 10 cities in the country, the way the public transport is weak, we saw the emissions are higher, as high as 54% in Hyderabad, and 46% from transportation sector in Bangalore, which highlights that we should improve the public transport. Third is the building architecture. We are the masters of copy-paste culture. Our architects and civil engineers, they copied the architecture of European climate with a glass facade building. You know, my study shows that when we have reside in a normal building, our electricity consumption is 700 to 1200 units per person per year. Whereas in the glass facade building, it is 14,000 to 17,000 units per person per year. See, if you go to Infosys, there is a Titanic building, glass facade building. They realize the electricity wastage there. Now they use that as the artifact. They just store the material, people just saw the Titanic this one and come. You know, that is where a senseless intervention has come to an end. And I strongly feel best weapon is to make everyone environmentally literate. When people have environmental knowledge, they become sensible and they will become responsible. So that you have addressed the solid waste problem, energy wastage, then they will not take the two-wheeler or four-wheeler to go to the vegetable shop, which is about 200 meters away. That is the kind of the thing required. Now, any of the issues.
And water.
Yeah. The water is also, the one is, I have shown how the sustainability we can achieve in Bangalore. I said by rainwater harvesting 15 TMC. If you are using 18 TMC of water, if you treat it based on the nature-based solution, like what we have done at Jakkur Lake, using constructed wetland and algal pond, where we get the tertiary treated water. You know, way back in 2005, the wells had nitrate. At that time, I pushed the government to rejuvenate the lake. I was a member of the committee. I introduced the nature-based solution at that time with the constructed wetland algal pond. Today, my last 12 years, my students have monitored the lake and surrounding area. And today there are 300 wells. None of them have nitrate. You know, that I have a satisfaction because of science. We have solved the problem at least for the 300 well users. Now Bellandur and Vartur is getting rejuvenated. The eastern part of Bangalore will have the water. Now if we do the wastewater treatment similar to the Jakkur model, we will have 16 TMC of treated water. 15 TMC because of rainwater harvesting, 16 TMC because of wastewater treatment. You have 31 TMC of water. You have solved the water problem. You know, for that I have 5R formula. First R is a responsible citizen. If they are responsible, they rejuvenate the lake so that I can retain the rainwater. Then they also allow the reuse and recycle of the wastewater. When you come to solid waste management, the same principle holds good. Avoid using plastic. Okay? Refuse, reduce, and then the solid waste problem is not there. The day when we mix the solid waste, the plastic with the organic waste, we started seeing the heaps of the waste everywhere. That is contaminating our groundwater as well as the soil. That way there are opportunities in each region. You know, for example, if you look at the energy sector, Deepthi is working on biofuel. That is the hope for the country. If you convert the agriculture waste into the bioethanol through the optimal method, you have solved the problem of pollution as well as this energy requirement. That is where science has a role to play. That is where we need to encourage dedicated youngsters who are doing good science.
Thank you, sir. I think the last statement of Professor Ramachandra, I think it is definitely echoing among the young researchers here, and I'm sure you will take it forward. And the 5 R's, I think it almost sounded like Chanakya declaration on sustainable resilience now. So, Professor Sudhakar sir, we know your work in the domain of AI, and while the nation is discussing on AI, impact of AI in Delhi, why don't we get the glimpse of Delhi here? But let me twist the question. Instead of looking at opportunities of AI for sustainable living, I would rather want you to highlight, given the time constraint, on the risks associated with use of AI for sustainable living. Risks that we need to foresee or think through, or challenges of adapting AI to. I know this question is something that you would not like because you are an optimist of AI, so that other perspective I'm sharing.
Yeah, but it is an important question. The whole world is talking about AI and experiencing AI on a daily basis. And India is hosting a big summit where lots of people are giving lots of new ideas. There are a lot of good solutions, no doubt. But what you have asked on the contrary is on the other side of the AI. First of all, I think there should not be a misnomer amongst the youngsters who are here that any problem can be solved by AI, just like that. So the question of ill-trained AI can take you completely in the wrong direction. For example, if your mind is not in the right spirits of thinking, you can always be doing something wrong. AI also works on the same lines, in the sense the basic performance indicators of AI completely depends on how well the AI network is trained. If the network is trained with wide varieties of sample data which represents the reality, then the learning curve will be very good. The LLM model, what we are talking about, basically it should be a very well trained, tested network. If not, this could be leading you into problems. So wrong usage of AI can easily spread if you use a network which is not well trained, and AI is not the solution for all the kinds of problems what we are looking at, particularly from the sustainability point of view. When we are looking at basic elements of land, water, ocean, atmosphere, in each of these areas I feel AI can play a very major role, but representing the nature's diversity as part of a learning curve to AI systems is a very big challenge. For example, I was trying to project Bangalore of 2035, looking at last 50 years data, train the AI model. I call it as a Geo AI here. So train the model and then see the CNN network with LSTM. Can it predict how Bangalore would look like in 2035? It gave me 5 different scenarios. You can't simply choose one. It's very difficult. Such kind of problems when you are attempting of looking at future, which of course AI is a very good tool to use and take the solution for. But the solution what you get, you should very carefully use that solution, and you should look at what you used for training and what kind of interventions need to be done so that you can get the correct representation, particularly when you are looking for prediction of the future. So AI for future prediction has to be used very, very carefully.
Thank you, sir. I think the last point was almost towards validity and verifiability of what you tend to get from these machines, right? So that's very critical. So Dr. Sudhakar, specifically at Chanakya, we also emphasize on the Indian knowledge system and the ecological wisdom that we have, the ancient practices. Given that you engage with aspects of biodiversity, biomass and many other areas, would you like to throw some light on how the ancient wisdom is currently practiced and what can be added more to ensure sustainability and sustainable resilience across the domain?
I'll quote with Professor Madhav Gadgil. He was the visionary. He found that the knowledge of the people to be considered while developing even climate change mitigation, adaptation, or even like the conservation of the biodiversity. So through his visionary thought, he suggested that each village, like you have the biodiversity management committee or forest management committee, they are actually local bodies. So we need to have the information of our flora resource, fauna resource and vegetation types, water body. So he suggested that we need to have the people's biodiversity register, and that is now in the policy framework. The National Biodiversity Authority adopted that vision of the Professor Madhav Gadgil, and now in almost all the villages they are trying to generate the people's biodiversity registers, so that help us in managing the current resource, and also like Professor Divakar mentioned that AI and ML. So now you have this many people, this much of resource, and your population is growing, your demands are also growing, and government has to give infrastructure. So and we have the limited space. So now if you integrate such kind of people's baddest register information, population growth and the resources management, so we need to integrate such kind of AI and ML model with the data generated by the local wisdom. So that we
So Ramachandra sir, you had some point.
One is, if you look at our roots and our culture, I think we can have sustainable development. If you look at Rigveda, it talks about 8 to 12 million species, which also even talks about microorganism. In science, we have estimated 1.3 million species. Now, if you look at our practice, one of the things I said yesterday also I keep telling is, science, society, culture and spirituality should go hand in hand. If you want to address the problem of changes in climate, or if you want to have sustainable development, that is what has to happen. Look at Bible. Bible talks about nature conservation at least 320 times. I have read Bible. When you look at Quran, it talks of imminent war if you pollute the water. That's why when you visit Dargah, you have to wash your feet and finger with a clean water. Good Dargah will have a well. You have to collect the water and wash your feet and finger. Then only you can go inside. They thought that if you practice at Dargah, you will do it at home and in community. Similarly, in our literature, Matsya Purana, if you look at, brings out so beautifully the linkage between water, children and trees. If you have well at home, I will say it in English, okay? You are wealthy, prosperous. 10 wells are equal to 1 lake. 10 lakes are equal to 1 sarovar, 10 sarovar is equal to 1 child, and 10 children are equal to 1 tree. If somebody cuts a tree, I write an article saying that he has murdered 10 children. Don't you see that's very effective? That's what we have to do. And our traditional knowledge, I learned this very long back when I was quite young, in the mid-20s. When I went to the Uttara Kannada district, one elderly man told me, on a particular day it's going to rain. I thought that he's just bluffing me. I went on that day, June 5th. As he said at 12 o'clock, I went to his house, sat in his house. Exactly at 12 o'clock, it started drizzling and rain. I just saluted and came outside that my supercomputer at IISc didn't predict so well. I salute you for this kind of, and that opened up my career. I started thinking differently, and that's what I have done all along now.
Thank you, sir. I think resilience is built thousands of years, at least in India, because of this text that you refer to and the practices that you follow. To Dr. Olga, we had Professor Ramachandra sir referring about GDP as a problematic measure. Dr. Rajshekhar sir mentioned about economy as a challenge, as a limitation for air pollution. So development is essentially a challenge on one hand. Development seen as economic development, not development which is more inclusive development or sustainable development. How is this tension in Russia? And how would you?
No, I'll just intervene here.
Sure.
See, we are pushing for green GDP.
Yes.
See, normally GDP, gross domestic product, when you compute it, we are not accounting the degradation cost of the ecosystem. Industry comes up,
Right.
You are considering only the output of the industry for GDP. We are insisting that ecosystem services has to be accounted. We did that services accounting in Karnataka. All the ecosystem, forest, agriculture and the wetland ecosystem that has come out in the form of book. Bharat Satur is also one of the author of the thing. We have shown what is the worth of the forest ecosystem. If you look at Karnataka, 2005,
Yes.
every year 2,800 billion rupees per year is the ecosystem service in 2005. Today it is 2020 when you look at, it's about 1,835 billion rupees per year. If you can look at the NPV, net present value, the worth of the forest ecosystem was 79,000 billion rupees. Today is 41,000 billion rupees. So that's what when I wrote to the government of Karnataka, we have lost from 79,000 to the 41,000 billion rupees. All this money, what we have lost because of the mismanagement, we should recover from the officers who have managed the forest all along in the state for the last 5 decades. Okay, that's how it becomes powerful.
That way they develop accountability.
That's true.
So what I meant by saying that was that economy as an indicator would have certain challenges in order to looking at resilience building. So that's where you key to learn from Russia and other rated countries that you have worked with? How do they engage with it?
Самое сложное – это найти баланс между использованием природных ресурсов и развитием экономики.
So the hardest thing here is to find some balance between the economy and the using of natural resources.
С одной стороны, мы должны сохранять биоразнообразие, поддерживать природу, с другой стороны, должны дать возможность людям жить лучше.
On one hand, we have to support biodiversity and preserve our nature, but on the other hand, we have to give jobs for our people.
И в меняющемся климатах, то, о чем мы говорили как раз на этой конференции, с одной стороны, мы должны разрабатывать технологии, которые позволяют снижать воздействие человека.
And as we were speaking, like under the climate change, we have to develop technologies that let people decrease their impact on the environment.
А с другой стороны, мы прекрасно понимаем, что пока ситуация будет усугубляться, мы должны к этому приспосабливаться.
So, and at the same time, while we are developing these technologies, we have to understand that while we get this technology, the situation will continue going worse, and that we have to adapt to this situation.
Мы должны разрабатывать технологии адаптации к этому меняющемуся миру, и в том числе так, чтобы нам было жить лучше.
So we have to develop technologies which let us adapt to the changing world, and so that this technology would let us have a better life.
И в этой связи я хотела бы напомнить, что есть целый ряд факторов, которые меняют климат, природных факторов.
So in this respect, I would like to remind you that there are a number of natural factors which change the climate.
Например, выбросы вулканов, они выдают огромное количество вот этих выбросов, которые меняют климат и очень сильно воздействуют.
For example, volcanic emissions are polluting the air and the environment very heavily, even worse than any industrial company.
И одновременно человек меняет, поэтому мы должны думать еще о технологиях именно адаптации.
So, and we also know that it's not only the natural disasters, as I said, the volcanic, but it's also the anthropogenic impact on the natural resources. And the main thing for us nowadays is to adapt to the situation.
Sure, thank you. So I think adopting to green technologies is one of the many solutions that one can take away to reflect on further.